being basically a Hermetic system, even though it doesn't exactly match up with Agrippa and with the Golden Dawn, but then it is essentially a Hermetic system because both Dee and Kelley were Hermetic magicians, and so consequently, the structure of these tablets, the way they work like kameas, and a kamea is a magic square. And a magic square, if you probably know from you've probably seen these magic squares before, they have, you can make sigils out of them. You can, the magic square has a series of numbers, and those numbers also relate to letters, because Hebrew and Enochian, too, both have alphanumeric equivalents. And so you can make a name and pull it out of the square with a little design, like sort of connect the dots, like a kid's connect the dots thing. And so these tablets are a grid. It's a grid with all these different Enochian letters, and then you can spell out the names of the angels, and you can spell out the names of the governors of the different Aethers and everything on the tablets. You can also do this with your wand when you're standing in the center. You can evoke from the tablet, and then you can trace out the sigils of the governors on the tablet itself. Now, how does this work? How does this actually work, besides being some sort of an acrostic game? The way it works, I think, is that it works in your deep mind. In your deep mind, once you have this structure developed, and you have it, and your mind has absorbed the structure, this universal structure that you created, then these names, once you draw them out and once you pronounce them, and once you start activating these tablets, these names activate patterns and activate visions and patterns and processes in your deep mind. Now, there are two ways to look at this. One way is that, and this would be called, I suppose, the subjective psychological way, would be to say that, well, yeah, they do. They activate these things down there, but it isn't really mechanical. It's more symbolic, metaphoric, and more of a indirect method that depends upon imagery and depends upon this. The other way of looking at it is that the actual sounds, just the sounds that you're producing here when you do this, actually act like little switch triggers, bing, 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 inside your mind, and they get these things going. And of course, the idea here is that our minds, especially in the Hermetic philosophy, our minds are linked to the whole universe, and our DNA takes us all the way back to the prehistoric times, and we remember all these things. And remember Socrates once said that you don't learn anything; all you do is just remember. Well, the Skinnerite or the reductionalist would say, oh, well, the mind's a blank slate, and all you're doing is just playing around and pulling switches. But we know, and Noam Chomsky proved, that we all have a grammar machine inside us. We have this grammar machine built in. We're born with it. Now, this is a key thing in Enochian, this grammar machine of Chomsky's, because Edward Kelley, who was doing the scrying, when this language was brought forth, Edward Kelley did not have Latin, he did not have Hebrew, and he did not have Greek. Dee did, but Kelley didn't. All Kelley could do was read and write English. So, when the angels delivered this language was entirely, that came out of Kelley. It was Kelley's grammar machine that was creating the language. And the incredible thing about this is that the language that Kelley created and D took down, and they did it backwards too. So this is another incredible thing about it. He came out backwards, and then and D wrote it down. So there's no way they could have faked it. This language has a syntax and a grammar. You can translate it. You can speak it. Although it has limited vocabulary. Its vocabulary is limited to spiritual, biblical type things, so it's kind of limited in that respect, but you can speak. In fact, our movie Beyond Lemuria, which I get a little plug in for here, we have translatable Enochian all through the movie. We're speaking it and delivering it and receiving it, and it's all translatable. So if those of you who are you want to hear some Enochian actually in use, you might want to take a look at the film. Anyway, so they got these tablets with all the Enochian letters on them, and they had all these sigils of these governors. But after Dee and Kelley passed on, other magicians started to work with this system. Now, nobody knows quite who. I don't think anybody knows. I mean, there's probably some Enochian scholar out there that's listening that probably does know, and if so, you might want to call in and tell me. But I don't know who first came up with the idea of using Terrestrial Victory as the ascending Aethers. In other words, starting with the lower astral and going all the way up to the highest level. I don't know who was the first one to do this. I don't think it was Tom Rudd, but it could have been. But no, I'm not sure. But by 1909, Aleister Crowley, he really wrote his most beautiful and most powerful piece of work, I think anyway, called The Vision and the Voice. And this was written in 1909, and he walked across the Sahara Desert in Morocco with his protege, Victor Newberg, and the two of them, Crowley scribed these Aethys with a big topaz that he had, and he received and transcribed his visions of the 30 Aethys, starting with the lowest, which is Teats, and I spelled text, by the way, but it's pronounced Teats. Starting with Teats and ending with Lile, which is pronounced Lil, which has, of course, that's some jokes about that. Well, go from text to Lil, no, but it's Teats to Lile. Anyway, Crowley started with this scrying, and frankly, he pretty obviously enhanced his visions after he had them, but oh boy, The Vision and the Voice is a marvelous piece of work. And you should, of course, realize that it's after the Book of the Law, and it's very thelemic, and his interpretations are thelemic, but regardless of that, it's a marvelous piece of work. And now, these Aethys, they form the primary system that most of us use practicing Enochian these days, or exploring the Aethys. Let me say something, though, before we get into actually doing a little Aether exploring or get started on this. Let me say that that Enochian angels are not all wonderful, loving, and benign creatures. They're not. Please don't get the idea that because Dee was a devout Christian and all. Don't get the idea that these Enochian angels are all good and sweet and wonderful. They're not. In fact, they're rather alien. They're rather abstract, and they are just not spirits that that you can comfortably relate to. They are different. They are very different, which I think is one of the things that makes them exciting and interesting to deal with. Is that they don't have that human relation. They're not archetypes. These are aliens, and they are not necessarily your friends, and you should be aware of this. At one point, Kelley got up from scrying at one point and said, "I can't do this. They're demons. I can't do this anymore." And he was going to walk out on Dee. He said, "They're evil. I can't stand it." And Dee told him, "No, that's not true. Get down, sit down. You know, and then at various times they would, like one little spirit, Medime, was running around naked and whatever, dancing around on the altar. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but then at one point, the so-called angels told Dee and Kelley that they had to share their wives in common, through Kelley, of course. And Dee naturally didn't want to do that. Neither did his wife. They were both, devout Christians. And Kelley said he didn't want to do it either, but they did. And they did do this. And this was so. This was not fine pagan. I guess it was. Pagans wouldn't find it all that uncomfortable. Although I don't know, I think I'd be a little upset by it. But so don't get the idea that these angels are all sweetness and light. Also, too, you should be aware that these angels that this system is very, very apocalyptic. In fact, Don Tyson even pointed out that he thought that it was designed to bring about the apocalypse. And well, in a way, when you read the Call of the 30 Aethyrs, which I will do here, you can kind of get an idea of the character of this. So I'm going to read the call in English right now, so you can get an idea of it. All ye heavens which dwell in the first air, ye are mighty in the parts of the earth, and execute the judgment of the highest. Unto you it is said, behold the face of your God, the beginning of comfort, whose eyes are the brightness of the heavens, which provided you for the government of the earth, and her unspeakable variety, furnishing you with the power of understanding to dispose all things according to the providence of him that sitteth on the holy throne, and rose up in the beginning, saying, the earth, let her be governed by her parts, and let there be division in her, that the glory of her may be always drunken and vexed in itself. Her course let it run with the heavens, and as a handmaid let her serve them. One season let it be confounded with another, and let there be no creature upon or within her the same, and all her members let them differ in their qualities, and let there be no one creature equal with another. The reasonable creatures of the earth and men, let them vex and weed out one another, and their dwelling places let them forget their names, and the work of man in his pomp let them be defaced. His buildings let them become caves for the beasts of the field. Confound her understanding with darkness. For why? It repenteth me that I have made man. One while let her be known, and another while a stranger, because she is the bed of an harlot, and the dwelling place of him that is fallen. O ye heavens, arise, the lower heavens beneath you, let them serve you. Govern those that govern, cast down such as fall. Bring forth with those that increase, and destroy the rotten. No place let it remain in one number. Add and diminish until the stars be numbered. Arise, move, and appear before the covenant of his mouth, which he hath sworn unto us in his justice. Open the mysteries of your creation, and make us partakers of the undefiled knowledge.